Who doesn't want unity in marriage? We know it's biblical. Back in Genesis, the two become one, right? And we know we don't like disagreeing with our spouse and we don't like getting into fights. But what does this actually look like? I'm about to share a number of things that Sarah and I implement in our marriage to build unity. Every last one of these play a vital role in the depth of intimacy and unity that we share. First, I want to talk about unity of the heart. This is about connecting on a deep level. This oftentimes looks like being willing and available and able to process through the deep things in life, oftentimes accompanied by deep questions. This tends to lead to long conversations. Without long conversations, it is remarkably difficult to have heart level unity. And one of the things that most people don't realize is every single time you open your mouth in conversation, you are either taking the conversation deeper or more superficial. So if she says in response to how's your day going, and she's like, it's fine, you can either respond with something like, oh, good to hear, or glad it wasn't worse. And that takes it superficial. Or you can say, I notice a bit of a tone in your voice. What's going on? And that gives the opportunity for the conversation to go deeper. By initiating conversation that goes ever deeper on a reoccurring basis, the two of you can have deep intimacy on a heart level in your marriage. Now, how do you actually implement this? In large part, it's about one, learning the skills related to communication. It's also about building enough trust that you can have those deep emotion level conversations. But it's also about fostering an environment where those kind of conversations can happen. So often couples are just simply running too fast to promote the type of unity that they so desperately want. They're running from different kids' athletic events. They're running between work and working out. They're running between meetings. They're running between making dinner and grocery shop. They just aren't prioritizing time amidst so many important things. Some of the things that it looks like in Sarah and my marriage is it looks like having the vast, vast, vast majority of meals together. It looks like going on long walks. We're talking at least 20 minutes, or if not longer, on a daily basis. Both of these promote conversations. There's no music, there's no phones or technology. It is simply us breaking bread together and fostering an environment on a day-to-day level. But even with this, it's important to have set aside times that you can go increasingly deeper. We're talking about like over hour-long conversations. As I talk about in the Courage Reclaimed courses, anything that is left below the surface that is negative is going to fester. So having those long conversations gives space for those negative things to come out, breathe, and then be healed. And so yes, it can be very uncomfortable, but it is well worth it. This also provides an opportunity to find agreement. If, for example, we disagree on something regarding parenting, it gives us the opportunity to process through our different perspectives, the heart behind it, until we are of one heart. Oftentimes, couples will find an area that they disagree, and because they're not willing to go deep or spend the time to go deep in figuring out each other's heart behind it, they just bicker. And no one likes being in a bickering type relationship, and no one likes parents that bicker on a regular basis. It's just unpleasant. So meals together, going on long walks, and having set aside time are all huge parts of what allows us to build unity on a heart level. In addition, going to bed at the same time. Now, we tend to differ a little bit as far as when we would prefer to go to bed. However, stemmed in large part from my struggles with addiction, I started being, in essence, forced to go to bed at the same time as my wife so that there was no room for speculation. There's no room for concern that something was going on. And we have found it to be such an asset to our marriage that we just continue doing it whenever possible. This also promotes opportunity for sexual connection, which I'll get into in just a little bit. But for this section about connecting on a heart level, the fact that we go to bed at the same time creates yet another opportunity for us to connect on a heart level, So even despite the busyness of work, of ministry, of family, of parenting, we still get time on a daily basis to connect on a deep heart level. It's also vital for any marriage to connect on a soul level. This could look like going to church together, praying together, reading scripture together. Prayer is a deeply connectingful behavior between us and God, as well as us and our spouse. And oftentimes in the midst of betrayal, it can feel really awkward for the betrayer to initiate praying because it could easily feel insincere or performative. And oftentimes the betrayed spouse won't want to hear it either because it can come across like, so you're going to lead us in prayer and you're going to lead us spiritually, but you're not going to maintain your sobriety. But praying for each other is absolutely vital, together if possible, but certainly on our own with the Lord. Oftentimes, in the midst of our busy lives, the moments that we are able to fervently pursue the Lord tend to be what helps us connect more than anything else. While we don't keep it 100% of the time, most Sunday evenings we will spend time in fervent prayer. And this is different than the prayers that we pray over meals or the prayers that we'll pray before bedtime together, which are also hugely important and I highly recommend. What fervent prayer means for us is we both bow before the Lord and we spend an extended time of prayer, praying back and forth for anything and everything that comes to mind that the Lord lays on our heart. And this can take 10, 15 minutes or substantially longer. But again, this helps us connect on a soul level and be united and know where each other stands. As part of being married, we are also called to be united in body. And to clarify, just like sex comes after the commitment of marriage and the deep intimacy that's been built along the way, so it is in marriage. If we are trying to force sex on a spouse that we're not connecting with on a heart level or on a soul level, it can easily feel manipulative, self-serving, selfish, and it doesn't feel good to be in that type of relationship. So before I get into anything regarding sexual connection, I want to encourage you to build bodily unity through, for example, supporting her physical well-being. In our marriage, to state a couple of examples, this looks like any time that I'm in the proximity where a diaper change needs to happen, I rush in to change the diaper. Not because Sarah's incapable of it, but because I know that that's meaningful to her. It's a means by which I can serve her and help give her even just a 30-second break. This, albeit small, for me looks like filling up her water bottle anytime I notice that it is getting low because I want to help her stay hydrated. And on a fun level, this looks like me running to get her towel when she turns off the shower water because I want to serve her not only on a heart level, not only on a soul level, but also at a body level. And obviously with each of these comes sacrifice, but it is all well worth it. This also looks like offering massages even when I know it's not going to lead to sexual connection, helping her to de-stress and decompress after a long, busy day. Oftentimes it looks like giving her capacity. If she's been running around all day supporting our family, then when I get home from work and I've had a crazy day, I get the opportunity to take Bridger so that she can get some space to decompress. And that's not to say that she always takes me up on it, but that is my heart pretty much any time that I come home from work. This also looks like when we do connect sexually, seeking mutual joy and connection instead of just self-serving. See, all of this unity is not about seeking our own interests, but seeking the interest of others. It can be exhausting having really long conversations, especially when you have a lot on your own mind, or when you've had a really busy, tiring day, or when you just feel the need to veg. It can be really exhausting to spend time fervently praying together when you have so much going on. And it can be exhausting showing physical support for your wife after you've had a really long and difficult day. But what starts as difficulty can quickly become habit and a habit that builds the type of unity that we actually long for in marriage. Yes, it's a hard journey, but it is absolutely well worth it. Now, each of these levels of unity, connecting on a heart level, a soul level, and a body level, each of these require a level of intimacy. And there are certainly many circumstances in which the marriage is just not there. There are roadblocks there. There's an unwillingness to connect sexually, or there's an unwillingness to connect emotionally. And for any husbands who are watching this and your wife is not willing to go to one of those areas, I encourage you to take our Rebuilding Trust course. That's literally why it was developed. It's not about finding a way to get your way. It's about becoming the kind of husband that God has called you to be and that your wife longs for you to be. And if you're thinking to yourself, there's no way that my wife would fill in the blank, connect with me sexually, allow me to massage her, run and get her towel, have a real honest conversation with me. I've been there. It is so tremendously difficult. But I also want you to know that there is hope. We serve a very big God. And my friends, I had no idea what it looked like to break free from porn, and I had no idea what it looked like to rebuild trust with my wife. The reality is, those are two very important journeys, but they are completely separate journeys. Your rebuilding of trust with your wife doesn't happen naturally just because you become more a man of integrity. Both are intentional. And in fact, you can tell based on what your wife will and will not allow. You can use that as a gauge for how much trust exists between the two of you. And to an even greater extent, if you take the Rebuilding Trust course on the Courage Reclaimed website, you'll be able to get a gauge for how much trust exists in your marriage, as well as what you can do to continue building more and more trust. Ultimately, I believe that your marriage can experience the same kind of intimacy and unity that mine does, because the reality is it has very, very little to do with who I am and everything to do with who God is. And God is much more invested in your marriage reflecting the unity of the gospel and the intimacy of the gospel than you are. But God works with us to accomplish his purposes. So I encourage you, just because your marriage is where it is right now, do not lose hope, but rather pursue becoming the kind of husband that God has called you to. And if the Rebuilding Trust course would be helpful for you to chart the next steps, go for it. We also offer coaching to help Christian men rebuild trust with their wives. This is about tailoring the content from the Rebuilding Trust course to your specific situation so that we can help you become the man that God has called you to be, the man that your wife longs for you to be, and the man that in your heart of hearts you long to be.